You're standing in the kitchen. The fridge is humming. The light is too bright. One hand is half raised, like you were about to reach for something, and you have no idea what. A second ago, you were on the couch, and you had a reason, a clear, specific reason. You stood up with purpose. You walked all the way here. And somewhere between there and here, somebody opened a little door in your skull and quietly deleted the file. You stand there. You look at the counter. You open a cabinet, just in case the answer is hiding behind the cereal. Nothing. So you walk back to the couch, defeated, and the instant you cross back into the living room, it slams into you. The scissors. You wanted the scissors, of course. Here's the thing I want you to sit with for the next half hour. That moment is not a glitch. It's not your age. It's not your phone rotting your attention span. That blank, stupid, universal moment is one of the cleanest little windows we have into how your mind was actually built. And what it was built to do has almost nothing to do with kitchens. I'm going to walk you through exactly why it happens. There's a famous set of experiments where scientists caught the culprit red-handed, and the answer surprised even them. But that's just the warm-up, because the same hidden mechanism that wipes the scissors from your memory is also wiping something much bigger. Stay with me, and near the end, we're going to get to the unsettling part. The part where I explain why whole years of your life feel like they've vanished, why you can't remember driving home last Tuesday, and why moving to a new house quietly kills a version of you. And then, right at the very end, I'm going to flip it, because this same broken little quirk is also one of the kindest things your brain does for you. It's the reason you're able to let things go at all. But first, let's start with the blank. Everybody does this. Everybody. You're not allowed to feel special about it. The teenager does it, the surgeon does it, the genius does it. You walk into a room with a mission, and the room eats the mission. Sometimes you even say it out loud. What did I come in here for? Like the room might answer. And for a long time, people just shrugged. They blamed it on being tired, being distracted, having too much going on. Reasonable guesses. All wrong. Because if it were just distraction, then walking further would make it worse, right? More steps, more time, more chances to lose your train of thought. That's the obvious assumption. And it turns out the obvious assumption is exactly backwards. Which brings us to the experiment. Almost 20 years ago, a psychologist at a university in the United States, a man named Gabriel Radvansky, got curious about this exact feeling. The walking into a room amnesia. And instead of shrugging like the rest of us, he built a trap for it. He put people in a simple little video game world, rooms connected by doorways. Inside the world, you'd pick up an object from a table, say a red cube, but you couldn't see it once it was in your hands. You were just carrying it, invisibly, the way you carry a thought. Then you'd walk to another table and set it down, and pick up something new. And every so often, the program would freeze and ask you, "Hey, what are you carrying right now? Do you remember?" Simple. And here's the cruel little twist he built in. Sometimes, to get from one table to the next, you walked the same distance, but in a straight line, across a single big room. And sometimes you walked that same distance, but you passed through a doorway into a second room. Same steps, same seconds, same brain. The only difference was a door. And the people who walked through the doorway forgot. Way more often. The ones who crossed the same span of floor in one room remembered just fine. It wasn't the walking. It wasn't the distance. It wasn't the time. It was the door. Cross a threshold and your memory takes a hit. That's it. That's the whole effect. Scientists started calling it the doorway effect, which is delightfully unscientific and perfect. Now, the first thing a good skeptic says, and I want you to be a good skeptic, is, okay, but that's a video game. That's not real life. Pixels on a screen. Fair. So they did it again with real rooms, real tables, real objects, real human beings walking through actual physical doorways in an actual building. Same result. The threshold ate the memory. And then someone asked an even sneakier question. What if it's not the door at all? What if it's just new scenery? So they ran a version where you walked the same distance, but the room around you changed without any door. And the forgetting still showed up, which tells you something huge. It's not really about the door, the wood, the hinges. The door is just the most obvious signal your brain uses for something deeper. Here's where it gets interesting, because now we have to ask the real question. Not what. We've got the what. The question is why. Why on earth would crossing a threshold delete what you're holding in your head? To answer that, you have to understand the desk. Picture your working memory, the stuff you're consciously holding right now, as a small, cluttered desk. Not a warehouse, a desk. And it's tiny. You can keep maybe a handful of things on it at once before they start sliding off the edges. The reason you can repeat a phone number for 10 seconds and then it's gone forever, that's the desk clearing itself. The desk is not built for storage. The desk is built for right now. So when you stand up with the thought, scissors, living room, scissors, that thought is just a sticky note on the desk. It's not filed anywhere. It's not in the archive. It's a flimsy little note held in place by your attention, and your attention is a weak, distractible thing. Now, here's the part that changes everything. Your brain does not experience your life as one smooth, continuous river. It feels continuous, but that's an illusion the brain stitches together for you, like a movie made of separate frames. Underneath, your mind is constantly chopping your experience into pieces, into scenes, into chapters. Researchers have a name for this. They call it event segmentation. Big phrase, simple idea. Your brain is always, quietly, in the background deciding, is this still the same event, or did a new event just start? And it's watching for cues, a change in scenery, a change in who's around, a change in what you're doing, a sudden noise, and, you guessed it, a doorway. A threshold is one of the loudest possible signals to the brain that says, new scene starting now. And when your brain decides a new scene is starting, it does something very sensible and very ruthless. It saves the old scene, closes it, and clears the desk for the new one. Save and close. Wipe the whiteboard. Fresh start. The scissors were on the whiteboard. You walked through the door. New scene. Save, close, wipe. And now you're standing in the kitchen with a clean, empty desk and a vague feeling that there was supposed to be something on it. That's the doorway effect. It's not a failure of your memory. It's your memory doing exactly what it's designed to do. The forgetting is the feature, which is insane when you think about it. Why would evolution build a brain that throws away your goals at the worst possible moment? Why would clear the desk every time the scenery changes ever be a good idea? And this is where we have to leave the kitchen entirely. Because to understand why your brain works this way, you have to go back. Way back. Tens of thousands of years back. To a brain that never once in its entire existence walked into a kitchen to get scissors. So picture it. You're not you. You're the long, long line of ancestors whose brain you inherited. And you live in a world without rooms, without addresses, without to-do lists. Your whole existence is a series of places. The riverbank, the tree line, the cave mouth, the clearing where the herd grazes. And every single one of those places is a different world with different rules. At the riverbank, the rules are, water is here, the ground is soft, watch the reeds, something might be drinking. At the tree line, the rules are completely different. Shade, snakes, the things that hunt from above, the fruit on that branch. The cave, dark, safe-ish, sleep here, watch the entrance. Now imagine your brain didn't reset between these places. Imagine you walked from the open clearing into the dark tree line, and your mind just kept running the clearing's settings, kept its attention pointed at the open sky threats, kept holding the clearing's mental map. You'd be carrying the wrong model of the world into a place that could kill you. You'd be braced for the wrong danger. So the brain learned a trick. Cross into a new place, dump the old place, wipe the desk. Build a fresh model right now, for here, for the threats and resources of this exact location. Because in that world, what mattered was never, what was I about to do? What mattered was, what is happening around me, here, now? Survival lived in the present scene. The old scene was already over. Carrying it was just dead weight, and dead weight got you killed. So your brain became, in a sense, a creature of location. It treats every new space as a new chapter that needs its own clean page, and it is extraordinarily good at this. You don't even notice it happening, because most of the time it's exactly what you need. You walk into a meeting and your meeting brain loads up. You walk into your childhood bedroom, and a whole flood of old self comes back, because that location is a key. Place is one of the master keys to your entire mind. The cost of all that beautiful, life-saving, location-based updating is one tiny, ridiculous bug. Every now and then, in a world full of doors that your ancestors never had, the white catches a goal you actually still needed. The scissors fall off the desk, and you stand in the kitchen feeling like an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're a hunter standing in a cave, and your brain just did 50,000 years of good work to keep you alive, and the only side effect was forgetting the scissors. That's the whole trade. I'd take that trade. Now, here's where I told you we'd go to the unsettling part. Because so far, this is a cute story about kitchens and cubes. But this mechanism, chop life into scenes, wipe at the boundaries, does not only run when you walk through doors. It runs your entire life, all the time. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Think about driving home, the route you've done 1,000 times. Have you ever arrived in your driveway and realized you have genuinely no memory of the last 15 minutes? You drove, you steered, you braked, you signaled, you did not crash. But the chapter is just blank. Not because you weren't there, because nothing crossed the threshold of new event. It was all one smooth, featureless scene, so your brain saved almost none of it. There were no boundaries to file things at. The whole drive collapsed into a single thin memory, or no memory at all. Now think about the opposite. Think about a day from years ago that you remember in vivid, photographic detail. I'd bet money it was a day full of boundaries. New place, then another new place. A thing went wrong. A stranger appeared. The weather broke. You got bad news. You got good news. Cut, cut, cut. Your brain was slamming down event boundaries all day long, and each one became a little hook you could hang a memory on. That's why a single chaotic vacation day feels longer in memory than 3 smooth months at your desk. More boundaries, more chapters, more hooks. Time isn't measured by the clock in your memory. It's measured by edits. And here comes the genuinely strange one. This is why so many people feel like whole years of their lives have vanished. You know the feeling. You look back at some stretch. Maybe it was a job you had. Maybe a couple of years that were all the same. And it's just a gray smear. You can't find the days inside it. People panic about this. They think something's wrong with them. Nothing's wrong with you. That stretch had no boundaries. Same room, same drive, same desk, same faces. Same scene running on a loop for months. Your brain, watching for did a new event start, kept answering no, 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 no. And so it kept the desk, never filing, never chaptering, just one endless, undifferentiated scene. And a scene with no edges leaves almost no trace. You didn't lose those years. They were quietly never written down in the first place. And now the part that gives me chills, honestly. Moving house, leaving a city, the end of a whole era of your life. Every one of those is a doorway, the biggest doorway there is, and your brain does to those exactly what it did to the scissors. It saves, closes, and wipes, and starts building a fresh model for the new place. Which is why, a few years after a big move, you can stand in the middle of your old neighborhood and feel like a tourist in your own past. The person who lived there, who knew which floorboard creaked and which neighbor to avoid, and what the light looked like at 6 in the evening in October, that person got saved and closed. They're in the archive, but the desk has long since been wiped and reloaded for wherever you are now. You are, in a very real way, a stack of closed chapters with hard cuts between them, and you spend your whole life standing in the latest room, holding the latest invisible cube, with no idea that the door behind you just deleted somebody. That's the unsettling part. Take a breath, because I promised you I'd flip it. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. Everything I just described, the wiping, the boundaries, the closing of chapters, that is not a defect in a creature that's supposed to remember everything. It is the single kindest mechanism your brain owns. Imagine, just for a second, that it didn't work this way. Imagine you crossed every threshold carrying everything. Every grief, every embarrassment, every unfinished argument, every version of yourself, all of it stacked on the desk at once, forever, with no save and no close. Imagine walking into a brand new room and your brain refusing to let go of the last one. You would drown. You could not function. You could not heal. The reason getting some fresh air actually works is the doorway effect. The reason people say, I just need a change of scenery, and then feel a little better is the doorway effect. When you're stuck on a problem, spinning, and you get up and walk to another room and suddenly the answer arrives, that's your brain wiping the cluttered desk and letting you approach it fresh. The thing that loses your scissors is the exact same thing that lets you put down a thought that was crushing you. Think about leaving a room where something terrible happened. A hospital. A house after a funeral. You walk out, you cross that threshold, and there is, physically, a tiny mercy in it. Your brain marks an edge. This event is ending. A new one can begin. People talk about needing to walk out of a place to start healing, and they're not being poetic. The threshold is real machinery. Crossing it gives your mind permission to close the chapter. Your ancestor in the cave needed to wipe the riverbank from his mind so he could survive the tree line. And you, standing in your kitchen, holding nothing, having forgotten everything, you have inherited the same gift, just pointed at grief instead of predators. The capacity to be wrecked in one room and walk into the next one as someone who gets to keep going. To not carry every single thing forever. To begin again and again and again, one doorway at a time. So the next time you stand in the kitchen, hand half raised, mind blank as a clean sheet of paper, and that little wave of "what is wrong with me" comes up, I want you to feel something else instead. That blank page is 50,000 years old. It kept your line alive. And it's the same blank page that lets you walk out of your worst days and into your next one. You didn't forget the scissors because your mind is failing. You forgot the scissors because your mind knows how to close a door. And that's the strange truth underneath almost everything your brain does to you. The bug and the gift are always the same thing, wearing two faces. The forgetting that frustrates you is the forgetting that frees you. We could spend a whole night by this fire pulling that thread. Why you can't tickle yourself. Why a smell can drag a dead memory back from 20 years ago in half a second. Why you'll defend a belief you only picked up last week like it's part of your spine. Same brain, same beautiful, ruthless, ancient machinery, quietly running the show behind your eyes. But that's another room, another doorway, and you know what happens when we walk through one of those. So, what did you come in here for again?